Hello, everybody. It's Shawana and Tara Zim here. We are on day 273 of 366 days to transform all fears back to love. And today is day 273, which is the first of a two-part series on how to remain utterly sovereign when codependent fears arise. And I've decided to take 2 days for this particular fear because it is so deep, and I know that I'm not going to cover everything, in two short videos, but these are designed just to be really pithy and essentially, hopefully, supportive. And just to start with codependency, I don't even think codependency is an epidemic. I mean, it's not something that just arises, one time in a person's life or, is just hitting the culture right now. I actually really believe that codependency is a pandemic. It spans across cultures, religions, gender, and ages. It's something that every single person in my practice has had to deal with at some point or another, in the work together. I mean, just a very basic definition to start with is codependency is the act of really leaving the self in order to get something for the self ultimately. And usually it's really for the ego child self. Let me just repeat that again. So, working definition I have currently is you leave the self to become a caretaker to ultimately get for the self, and usually that self that you're trying to get for is really an ego child self. And so from that place, how can we just even begin to address, when we have fears coming up? And one of the first things that I really want to encourage and support is to look at your motivation. What is it that you are trying to go to the other person for? What is it that you're trying to get? Because those are the things that you really must try and get for yourself. So often the caretaking, it's like if I do this, if I adapt myself in this way, if I do the workaround right, what will I get in return? And that's really, one of the underlying constructs of codependency. I've noticed that the three top things that people seem to go to the other person for are usually feelings of low self-esteem, worthlessness, valuelessness, insecurity. All those three seem to go together, or some other usually unfulfilled childhood need. And these structures get set up so early, when you perceive that your environment, you won't survive unless you become a caretaker or you become codependent. And it's a fantastic survival strategy. It ensures you get love, it ensures you get taken care of. You don't even know you're doing it. It's not really that cognitive until it starts playing out later on in relationships, and you wonder why you're not getting your needs met, or you may feel victimized by the fact that you're just not getting the support and the care that you really need. In fact, it all seems to go awry and just really haywire. So I want to share that, for many years this was me. I had deep caretaking codependent structures. My early survival depended upon it, and I did eventually heal it through doing tremendous inner work, and the work was always coming back to self and always coming back to my motivation for trying to get something from the other person. It was really painful because the feelings that were there in me, and I imagine in you too, before the caretaker identity got formed, are some of the most painful to look at. It's like, how would I have felt if I hadn't caretaken? What are those feelings? And those are the ones that tend to be the hardest to face, such as the low self-esteem, the worthlessness, all those kind of things mixed all together. And years after I healed it, I still had a fear. I had to really look at, was I being codependent and caretaking, or was I just simply caring? Because I do love to care for the people in my life. It's just really important to me. And one of the criteria that I used that was really helpful was to see, okay, if I try to get the need met from the other person, how does it usually go? And with caretaking and codependency, it just never really goes really well. And that was a really good um, key on the map, so to speak, to really know where my motivations were coming from, in addition to checking myself and becoming more aware of my syndromes and my motivations to seek things from other people by actually giving to them so that I could get something back. It's always for that child self. Um, so I want to just leave you with some questions to think about, maybe some tips on how to really check yourself if you are afraid that you're being codependent. So the first thing is, to summarize, what is your motivation for going to the other? What are you really trying to get? And who are you trying to get it for? I think to really look at, what this is based upon is so important, because if you can get connected to that, it will really help you begin to address this pattern. The second thing is, how are you going to feel if it doesn't work out in the interaction? And does the interaction work out? Are you able to caretake and then they give you what you need? Because usually I've noticed in codependent or caretaking interactions, it just doesn't work. The dynamic doesn't work. And eventually when we come to realize this, we can start to make some different choices. The third thing I would invite you to look at is the feelings that come up. What do they remind you of? What are they? Are they familiar to you? And my guess is that probably they are familiar to you. Maybe they are sharing with you to remind you of a part of yourself forgotten a long, long time ago. And that's a really valuable thing, because it's a piece of your heart and your soul coming for you through these different and difficult feelings. And then the next question becomes, what do they need? What do the feelings need? And can you give it? And what support might you need in order to really give them exactly what it is that they are asking for? And then from that place, if you redo the interaction differently, and those things for the places that they are codependent are, filtered out, does it go differently? And my guess is probably it will, but I'd love you to share with me how you check yourself from being codependent, and or the fears that may arise as you journey out of codependency and caretaking, really into true caring, not just of another person, but ultimately of yourself. So I appreciate you listening and watching today. I know this is a big subject, and there'll be more tomorrow on how to specifically address the feelings of worthlessness, self-esteem, valuelessness, and I'm looking forward to your comments and suggestions and feedback. And again, I am Joanna Intara Zim, and you can reach me at fierceloveandwisdom.com, or let me know in the comment section what you think. Thanks a lot.